Hello again, fight fans. I am Jason Burgos from MixedMartialArts.com, and I am joined by one of the greatest names in one championship lightweight history. He's a former two-time champion who returns to action on just a few weeks' notice at one on TNT4 on April 28th in the final fight of his trilogy with Japanese MMA legend Shinya Aoki. And that man I speak of is the Team Lakay captain, a Filipino sports superstar, Eduard Folayang. Edward, my man, thank you so much for the time before you return to the cage.
Yeah, thank you, Jason, for this time. It's always an honor being in your interview.
Oh, it's an honor for me. People are here to see the Filipino superstar. They're not here to see me. So I have so many questions for you now. So first, talk to me about how this fight with Shinya came together, because for a while the plan was for him versus UFC veteran Sage Northcutt. Then we find out Sage is having difficulties from COVID. He's out of the fight, and then you are in as his replacement. How long did one start talking to you about this possibility of being the replacement, and how much have you been just seriously training in the last month or so to all of a sudden just jump right into a fight?
Well, of course, I'm a professional athlete. I've been training, but not that intense. Actually, I am set to face the Japanese Korean Yoshihiro Akiyama, and
Mm.
then they told me that he was injured, and then after that, they asked me if I could fight Shinya. And then I heard the news that Sage Northcutt pulled out against his fight with Shinya. So, of course, I'm already in training, and I think it's also a good opportunity to face again Shinya in the third time. It's always an honor being with the Japanese legends, and I think this will really bring out the best in me. So my preparation, I believe I had to adjust for 3 weeks against him. So he have a different fighting style, not just like Akiyama.
Yeah.
They have different fighting styles. So I really need to adjust, especially on his masterpiece, which is his ground game.
And how does that? Well, first, um, I'm glad you brought up Yoshihiro, because that's what I was going to ask next. Because there were those rumors that you were possibly going to be booked in a fight with Akiyama. What for that fight? One, are you disappointed that you didn't get to fight him? Because on paper that looks like a really exciting fight, especially on the feet, because Akiyama likes to strike a lot. And two, was that fight because a lot of people know him when he was in the UFC or even in Japan. He would fight around middleweight, which is sort of like welterweight in one championship. Was this fight gonna be him down at lightweight in your division when you fought?
Yeah, he will be coming to my weight division because I'm not that big enough to go in the welterweight.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good challenge, facing this kind of MMA superstars. But of course, it's also a bit disappointing that like this happens.
Yeah.
But it's part of the game.
Yeah.
Sometimes even if you prepared so much and you're expecting a good fight with the others, then suddenly some shit happens.
Yeah.
So you really need to adjust again.
Yeah.
So when they told me to face Shinya, then probably this is the time for us to meet again after 5 years.
How much? Because both of them, have strong grappling skills. But Yoshihiro was, I believe, like a judo Olympic gold medalist, or at least a high level judoka. While Shinya, his style is more jujitsu based and those kind of takedowns. For people that don't understand fighting on a level like you do and just think, oh, well, they're both grapplers, they probably do the same thing. Is there a big difference in training and preparing for a guy like Akiyama with his judo style and then switching to a guy like Shinya in terms of, is there a big difference? Do you like have to switch up your training partners to people that have styles like them, and what are the big differences in each man's kind of takedown style?
Yeah, there's a big difference. When I watch the fight of Akiyama, he strikes much more than taking his opponent down.
Mm,
Unlike Shinya, that Shinya really wants to put the fight on the ground.
yeah.
So of course, there's a difference. So and I think if I against Akiyama will be fighting each other, then for sure there will be more striking that will happen.
Mm.
And when I fight Shinya, of course, you cannot deny the fact that Shinya wants to put the fight on his pace,
Yeah.
on which is on the ground.
Now,
So I think that's the big difference. Yeah.
speaking of training and stuff like that, the last 2 years have been a difficult time in your career. After being in the title picture for a long time, you've lost 4 of your last 5 fights. How difficult has this time been for you? And was there ever a thought to maybe even like to leave Team Lakai and see if training at another gym, like some fighters do? Like some fighters just like to train and they just like to get a different perspective on coaching and training partners. When you've had these recent losses, was there ever a thought to maybe switch up gyms, switch things up, see if it changes anything for you? Like, at one time I know you worked with Greg Jackson. Was there ever a thought to switch gyms during this time?
No, I think it's me. It's more on me failing. It's not about my team. So it's the mindset which causes a lot of my failures.
Mm.
And of course, it's really difficult, especially that I'm not expecting a fight with Shinya with those kind of losses.
Mm.
But in a good perspective, still I am thankful to my team because they're still there backing me up despite those losses. They are there motivating me
Mm.
to keep pushing forward. So I think it's really a need of mental change for me to see things in a different perspective now. And yeah, I come to realize that even when I change teams, it makes no difference if I don't change myself. So that's the way I see it.
Speaking of like the mental things, did you do anything different in like the last year or so to change up the mental side of things, to change up the perspective like you're talking about? Did you, like, some fighters will go see a sports psychologist, or maybe they'll do different things or get into different activities, whatever. Did you try anything different to change up the mental side of things for yourself?
For me, I think I was really based as a striker, and of course, when you grow in that area, as much as possible, you always wanted to put the fight in an area where you are comfortable.
Mm.
And for this time, I really need to embrace this other part of mixed martial arts, where is the wrestling and the ground fighting. So if I don't embrace that, the chances for me to win is very limited,
Mm.
because a lot of great fighters are really mixing it up well. So I need to embrace, I need to embrace the other aspect of the sport. And that's the thing that I didn't do in the past, with my fight with Eddie, and with my fight with Caruso. I just really want to put the fight on the strike on the striking department. So I think that's the biggest mistake that I made so far in this sport.
And I'm glad you brought that up because that's the thing I'm sure a lot of people, when they see this fight, they'll think about. Because they'll think about, yeah, Edward beat him the first time, but then Shinya was able to submit him the second fight. Then there was the you were winning against Eddie. You hurt him in the leg, were on top, and then he was able to reverse. He got the submission, and then Caruso was able to wrestle you. Like, that's interesting that you bring up embracing it. How do you embrace it? You know, explain to people that don't know what it's like to be a top level fighter, a former champion, training in a top gym. Like, how do you embrace it in a way that maybe you didn't embrace it before? Is it just like wrestling, like instead of maybe half of your camp being wrestling and striking, maybe like 70%, a lot more of your camp, you're just wrestling all the time? Like, for example, Francis Ngannou versus Stipe Miocic, the rematch. Like, Francis wrestled even more than ever before to prepare for that because he knew that was a thing. Is that how you embraced it? How did you embrace the ground game?
Oh, when you for me to embrace the ground game is to understand the principles of it, and when you wrestle, you really need to put a lot of energy on it. And you can see how Khabib, dominate his opponent.
Yeah.
He gassed them out and he out wrestled them very much. So if I cannot see how important that aspect in the sport, and I will not devote a lot of my time in this sport, then for sure a lot of my opponents will see that as a hole in me, and they will always go and penetrate me in that. So for me to embrace that is to put a lot of my time. Of course, even in the short notice, I really need to put a lot of my time, as it is very important aspect of the game.
Interesting. This is a big fight in one championship like lightweight history. You and Shinya are legends of the division in the promotion. Are and you are two having like a trilogy fight? That's a big deal. That's a really big deal. What are like the biggest memories you have from those first two fights? The first one you won and became champion for the first time, and the second one Shinya won and you lost, and he ended your second title reign. What are like the biggest memories for you that stick out from those two fights?
The biggest memory for me is that when others think that you're an underdog. Even when I didn't fight Shinya yet, they are thinking, oh, when Shinya will put Edward on the ground, that's already finished. A lot of people are doubting me. They don't believe that I can be able to pull a victory, but I was able to prove them wrong. So I think that's one of the greatest thing that motivates me until today. Even if Shinya in his winning streak, it will not pull me down. I know I still have the ability to get that win, despite all the despite all the things that happen.
If you can win this fight and win this trilogy over Shinya, like I mentioned, Japanese MMA legend, just in general, for a lot of people, MMA legend, would that be like one of the biggest moments of your career? Kind of like right up there with being a two-time champion, winning this trilogy with this rival? Would it really mean a lot to you?
Of course, it will really mean a lot to me because Shinya is a big name, and he's really a legend of this sport. And fighting him in the third time in this kind of things that happen, I have a losing streak, and yet given the opportunity to face him again, and if I can pull the win here, then it really means a lot. We fought for two title matches, but for now it will not be a title match. So of course it's very interesting also for me. No title in line, and yet we will be doing this again.
Dude, does that change the strategy at all? That it won't be 5 rounds, it'll be 3 rounds? Like, did, in those first title fights, those two fights, did you have to, part of the strategy was to kind of pace yourself, knowing, oh, this could go 5 rounds? Is there a big difference knowing that this is only 3 rounds, that maybe you can be more aggressive, push the pace in a way that maybe Shinya didn't get to see you do the first 2 times?
Of course, it's really a different strategy right now, because on the first time, that you have a lot of time to be with each other.
Mm.
But for now, it is more limited. So as much as possible, I need to utilize the time
Mm.
for me to be ahead of
Yeah.
him. So as much as possible, yeah, I really need to use every opportunity for me to get that win.
Now, I obviously hope this doesn't happen, but worst case scenario, like if you were to lose, it would be a fifth loss in 6 fights at 36 years old. Would it make you seriously ponder retirement? I know I don't want to see that, but has that been something you've thought about over maybe the last year or so, when some of these fights haven't gone your way, or you feel you still have so much to gain, you still love doing this, and also you can't retire, you have a young family to provide for, so even the idea of retirement is not even in your mind at all?
For me, the retirement is around. We will always be going there.
Hmm.
We will not always be that young, but of course, as long as I have the passion to do what I love to do right now, I think a loss will not be the greatest factor for me to hang up my gloves. But still, I know there's still the fire within me, and as long as that fire is there, it doesn't matter how many times I fail. What's important is that I will not give up and still pursue what I want to do in life.
Now, like I mentioned earlier, Sage Northcutt was supposed to fight Shinya Aoki. If you win this fight, would a fight with Sage next interest you? On paper, like, that's an Sage Northcutt versus Eduard Folayang, like, that's like a super exciting fight. Is that something that you would like to have next? Would a rematch with Eddie Alvarez be something you would like to get back a chance at? Because, like I said, you were winning early in that fight, then he was able to reverse you. Or is this Akiyama fight that almost did happen, is there a preference? Would you like one more than the other for your next fight?
Oh, well, there's a lot of choices, but any of them I think will do. I'm excited with all of the three, So I really need to focus first in this fight,
Mm.
and any of the three will do. Of course, I'm excited with a rematch with Eddie, with a fight with Sage, and a fight with Akiyama.
Now, speaking of Eddie, I mean, I'm assuming you probably did see the fight. His fight with Yuri Lapicus was very controversial because the illegal hits to the head. He got a red card instead of a yellow card. If you did see the fight, what were your thoughts as a competitor, as a champion fighting at the highest level? Like, what did you feel when you saw that fight? Did you think the red card was way too fast? Did you think like it should have been a yellow card? And did you know, like, because a person watching like, oh, how does he not know he's hitting him illegally? From a fighter's point of view, is it hard to tell in those moments when you're landing a shot if it's illegal in those kind of positions?
I think it's hard to of course Eddie wants really prepared for that fight. He really wants to go there to fight, and as much as possible, he wants to utilize every opportunity for him to finish his opponent. But of course, things happen. Sometimes your eagerness will cause you. And I think for Eddie, of course, um, it's very close. He probably, the thing there is that because for him he felt the ear. He was also hitting the ear, but in the other perspective, some of the hit are not. So I cannot blame Eddie, and he because of the desire, because of his desire to really go there and fight. So what can I say? But sometimes things happen. Probably the fight is not for him this time, and I'm looking for another fight that they will do again with Luri. Probably that will settle everything when they will face each other again.
Did you think that the red card made sense, or it should have been at least a yellow card first?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know, but I don't know. Probably yellow because, of course, it was unintentional.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. For me, probably it is yellow
Enjoyed this
first.
edition of Jason Burgos' Back Talk. You can follow and subscribe on YouTube, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Player FM, and many more podcast formats.